That was developed in Hungary from the writings of a Hungarian neurophysicist called Luria. Because in Hungary, no child could go to school unless it could walk. And in fact, what he was doing was really developing the children's control over their emotional muscles to allow them to walk. So they would only accept children who were clearly could demonstrate their intelligence, could see and could hear, and clearly had the capacity to respond to this education, which kind of moved motor control towards the limbic system. So children were walking in a very strange way, using long sticks and angling their bodies, but they were walking. So they could go to school. It didn't matter if they ended up, which they would have done, in wheelchairs afterwards. The children are having to fight gravity when they're standing. They've got these splints on, which is reducing blood supply to the extremities. The poor, weak diaphragm is having to try to move blood around under very difficult circumstances. And there are no rhythmical repetitions. The boy sitting cross-legged was having to be held, and you could see really that the postural strength of the diaphragm wasn't there. So what you've got again is the superficial muscle, and I mean, quite often it's fairly clear to parents that they can, by straightening the elbows like that, the child, they can be put in a fixed sitting position. In fact, all the positions in conductive education really are pretty much fixed positions. His mother is holding him by these over-tight trapezius muscles, but the typical healthy baby is moving all the time. No, this is a little boy who's having his head held. It's actually really extraordinary that she's holding his head back. You try and put your head back like that. It's really uncomfortable. You wouldn't want to be held in that position. And of course, he can't hold his head up because he can't breathe to hold his head up. And of course, what's happening here, his head is thrust back here. So this is trapping the blood supply in the back of his neck. But of course, he's not really sitting up at all. He's in a molded wheelchair. We have some expressive muscles on our face, but particularly more deeply inside the mouth, there are huge numbers of muscles that allow us to chew and swallow and to speak without having to use all these muscles to try to make some sort of connection between the air that you're exhaling and your desire to create a sound that could be a word that would help somebody to understand you. The positions that the children are put in, interestingly enough, I have papers from a long time ago, the 1980s, I think, with some really good speech therapists who have perceived the problem that children have with breathing and would never put them in these positions if they wanted to help them to speak. Unfortunately, they're doing all the wrong things, which is quite distressing. But what is the therapy? It's being held there. His head's to one side here. His shoulders come forward. He's got braces on his arms, which has reduced the nerve information in the joint and will continue to do so. There's no connection between the body parts. It's just extremely frustrating when there are very simple ways of addressing problems that are very deeply rooted in our world, and they're looked at purely from a financial point of view and never from the joyful desire and curiosity to understand and create something that is truly restorative. But in terms of children with cerebral palsy, it's probably more pleasant in childhood to go there than to go to some of the other places. But in the end, the outcome is the same. It's restrictive on the respiratory circulatory system. profoundly restrictive on the respiratory circulatory system. And not only restrictive, but it was also exaggerating a part of movement that we want to reduce, and under normal circumstances would be reduced, as well as all the work that I have done with Hugo. The other thing that has rescued him is what has not been done, which they tried to persuade his mother to use. And she had to be very firm, and they're very, very persuasive. And it just goes on. It's like, here we are, what's the date? 2025. This could be 1990. Nothing has changed.